p.m. our time, I believe it is time to get started, and if you are recording properly, I think we are going to go ahead and kick this off. In which case, this is... Alright, here. We're going to send... It should be available to anyone to read, not to edit. Okay, good. Our script is in chat, you can follow along, or you cannot follow along. Alright. Greetings, assembled attendees at the Centaurus Festival. Welcome. My name is Goratrix Bani Tremere, he, him. I'm the co-host of the Draconic Wizard Workshop, and have run panels before at OtherCon. This one, however, will be slightly different. I have a co-panelist in this, a headmate of mine. I'm Raphyel Snyder, ZZAM, one of the DWW's protectors. Hopefully you'll be able to tell us apart by voice, yeah? Let's just hope we don't have another incident with Goratrix's voice coming out with my accent. That's happened to us before, and it ain't pretty when it does. Now, a little bit about us before we get started. We are both fictives, vampires, source mates to an extent, but we have a few differences. We're different types of vampires, sure. He's a Tremere, I'm a Salubri, but we also have non-human identities attached to all that. I'm an angel, he's a dragon, and both of those aren't kintypes so much as archetypes. We'll get deeper into that later when we talk about where those identities came from, as well as their overlap with other identities, both ours and our headmates. We wanted to work together on a panel because this is a topic that is near and dear to both of us: intersectionality of identity. Do identities that an individual holds affect each other? We think they do, inevitably, because things that are a part of you are bound to affect other parts of you. What about systems? Can there be identities held by multiple members, or only while some are blurred or in the front together? We think so. Can mental illness or queerness play a role in alterhuman identity? We would like to convince you that they can. And for the record, yes, we both always sound like this. You'll get used to it. And just for the record, we are not going to really be looking at chat too much because we will get distracted and we are both long-winded. So, sorry. But to the person who understands what it means to have Tremere and Salubri in the same head, we've got both antediluvians in here. Yeah, it's a lot. Alright, let's get started. The false dichotomy. Ultimately, I think we should begin at the basis of how most alterhuman identities are defined, which is to say, most are sorted into being either spiritual or psychological. I will not spend time defining either, and will proceed with the assumption that the audience is at least passingly familiar with these concepts. It is essential to understand that these are not your only options when seeking to define or categorize an identity. There are many reasons why an identity may exist, or it may exist for multiple reasons. I do not find dividing identities between spiritual and psychological to be useful, as they can be intertwined and are not inherently opposites. Additionally, it can be difficult to tell whether an identity is one or the other, which does not support the idea of them being completely opposite and completely distinct. For example, the DWW's host, Tanix, has a kintype of a silithid that he cannot determine the origin or type of. Was he drawn to silithid hives because of a spiritual connection to them? Because of his kintype? Or did the kintype form because the hives were so essential to his psychology growing up? Or was it perhaps something different entirely? This is most commonly discussed in terms of otherkin, but there are many other causes for identity beyond spiritual and psychological. Archetypal, biological, magical, energetic resonance, and neurological as just a few examples. Additionally, these may be mixed. Perhaps you believe that your energy resonates at the same frequency as your kintypes, and this is due to some kind of psychological quirk you have. There is no reason that one cannot mix beliefs in this area, nor any reason why one has to label an identity under any of these. Perhaps nothing resonates with the why or where from, or perhaps you just don't consider it relevant and thus ignore it. In any case, this false binary and dichotomy of spiritual versus psychological is just the tip of the iceberg, as is this. Just as we have to tear down the aforementioned, we must dismiss the notion that all plural systems are either traumagenic or endogenic, with nothing in between, and with no room to simply not care about system origin. There are infinite ways for a system or for individual members to form, with many documented and given flags, even by those who identify with the label. These labels, spiritual, traumagenic, psychological, magical, endogenic, are all meant to be useful, to tell something about yourself in a single word. They are not meant to be cages for you to be locked in. Never ever should you be forced to use or identify with a label that does not ring true to you. Discard labels entirely if you wish, or collect a hoard of micro-labels if that is what you feel expresses you best. Describe yourself as a mix of two labels. For example, a system that was born with 4 members but split into 16 due to trauma could call themselves a mix of endogenic and traumagenic. Use a third label, make your own, or disregard them altogether. Identity is for you. Why am I talking about all of this? What does this have to do with the topic of the panel? I need to establish groundwork with you, an understanding that we are approaching this from an angle of identity and its labels being for you and you alone. And if anyone has a problem with it, block their ass. Fuck them. You do not need that kind of behavior in your life, not about something so fundamental to you. The strange twists and turns of your identity are something to toy with, pull at, play with, explore. Not to lock away under an ill-fitting label that others have thrust upon you. Just like there is no gender binary, there is no identity label binary. And to properly engage with the rest of the panel, it is my belief that you need to keep an open mind to that. With that established, let's talk about some identity intersection. Alright. Queerness and alterhumanity, and most of all xenogenders. We're going to start on a topic near and dear to my heart, which is queerness. Sexuality, romantic attraction, gender, all that. It can have an effect on each other, but so too can it have an effect on mental health, which I'm not going into in this panel. There are real professional studies done about that, and alterhuman identity. A common way this manifests is going to be with xenogenders, along with similar gender identities. How often in the alterhuman and non-human communities do you hear someone say something like, my gender is robot, or my gender is a dog? I don't know about you, but I see it a lot. Enough that whole projects have been launched to collect those experiences. It is absolutely worth examining the ways that species can have an effect on your gender, or vice versa, or even both. Statistically, most of you here identify at least partially as a species other than human. Does that interact with your gender at all, do you think? What about your expectations of gender from other people, or for yourself? Let's take an example from my system and go with my headmate Serenoth, a D&D gold dragon. He considers his gender to be gay male dragon. The reason for that is because a male dragon is going to have different expectations placed on him than a male human, societally and culturally. Present to those genders might be completely different, and they are. Serenoth is used to males being smaller and more lithe, while females are tankier and stronger, while in humans the sexes are more similar, and not as binary, as many would think, but the stereotype is the other way around. The way a male dragon performs masculinity is going to look different from how a male human performs masculinity, and maybe in a fully draconic society, Serenoth wouldn't need to emphasize the dragon in his gender, but he does, because he's in a largely human-centric society at the moment. He also includes gay in there because, again, of expectations and how he's supposed to perform masculinity. Where he's from, dragons are expected to be near aromantic, only becoming somewhat interested in a dragon of the opposite sex once they're at breeding age, only to reproduce. Maybe make a friend? That's about it. But that's not how he works. He's flamboyant, he's a flirt, he's gay, he likes men, both dragons and humanoids alike. That completely changes the way he presents his gender to others, and doesn't feel like he's necessarily a cis male despite being assigned male at birth and still identifying as such. He's not trans either, mind, but he's something else completely. I think a lot of xenogender and trans species identity gets covered up in throwaway jokes or comments about someone's gender being dog or whatever to piss off transphobes, but it's very, very real and important to a lot of people. Not that I'm saying don't have fun with it. I love joking about my gender. Many don't look past the surface and see it as absurd, but just peer a little deeper and you'll find whole worlds of interest and stuff inside any gender that describes itself even a little atypically. And even a lot of the typical ones. Air quotes around typical. Let's play with another example. Me. I identify as human. I was born as one, still like him. Vampire. Got turned into one. Salubri. That's my vampire clan. And an angel, my archetype. Intersex in such a way that I was assigned one thing at birth, and then as I grew up, abnormalities began to crop up, and it became clear that I was different from my peers. I was suddenly separated from the gender I'd been told all my life that I was, and it made me stop and wonder, what am I then? I asked myself that for a long time. Eventually decided I was never going to reach a real answer, picked up ZZM pronouns, renamed myself Raphael, and got ready to fight for my life in a world that didn't want people like me. When I became a vampire, a salubri, I got a taste of something beyond myself. The idea of healing, of protecting, of doing something for other people, and being and meaning more than I ever had before. That changed me in a fundamental way, but it also answered my question. I'm an angel. I'm a protector. I'm a guardian. Is it my gender? I don't know. But it sure had an effect on it, because I don't take on most gender labels beyond trans and queer, because even non-binary don't suit me. It's like it suggests I'm some kind of human gender that isn't one of the two usual. And that don't feel right to me. I'm something else, something not inhuman per se, but beyond human. Not in the way of being better, but in the way of being further down one of many paths. Does that make sense? Do you see how these things can all tie into each other? Do you see how someone might have a kintype whose gender they identify with that has such different gender roles and presentations to humanity that they call themselves trans species because there's no other label for it? What about people that, through their connection to some kind of non-human or alterhuman identity, can reframe their gender and become more comfortable with it, or shift it to a new angle and find some kind of new joy in it? These things overlap, hold hands, alter and change each other. And I think that's something to embrace, because hearing about this kind of thing can change you. And change how you look at species and sexuality and gender all over again. Just like it's the first time you read something written by a trans or non-binary person and realized that what you'd thought all along wasn't quite the lived experience of everyone in the world. Alterhuman overlap. It's not just queerness that can have an effect on an alterhuman identity. So too can other alterhuman or non-human identities. First, I will talk about how identities can overlap and produce unique experiences, and then Raphael will discuss how one identity can create another. I feel like identity overlap is something that the community typically understands quite well. Usually when one has mixed shifts from two different identities, usually kintypes, at a time. For example, having draconic claws and horns, but a heron's face, neck, and wings. A silly looking creature, perhaps, but something that someone here may very well have experienced. I want to encourage everyone here to cherish moments like this. By all means, be annoyed if they are annoying, but acknowledge what a fascinating and unique experience these things are. How strange and interesting for Tanix's wasp mandibles and draconic jaws to merge and become some sort of split lower jaw situation. How fascinating to feel my draconic jaws and my vampiric fangs, and to know that this is the only time that my dragon shape has fangs. Feel how these merge and change in the context of one another, and know that you are a creature unique, as no one else will ever be quite exactly like you. So too can behaviors overlap, or even cancel each other out. Dragons and vampires are both famously territorial creatures, and I am both. And yet, the territorialism is different. Vampires dislike rivals, dragons dislike intruders. Existing in my space is not a violation of my territory as a vampire unless I view you as a credible threat, and that I bare my fangs and growl, but to merely be in my area uninvited is a grave sin where my draconity is concerned, causing tail lashing and flared crests, and, again, growling and even hissing. My territorialism is wholly different than anyone else's in the systems, due to this overlap of identity, except Celadarn, who is a dragon turned vampire, unlike myself, who is a vampire who stumbled into the archetype of a dragon. But even so, we experience it very differently. Equally unique is when these things cancel each other out. A dragon is a ferociously independent creature, but many wasps are far more communal. Tanix has had his desire to be around others strengthened or weakened by being in one shift, then abruptly flipped when another shift takes over to be more prevalent. Other times he can grow increasingly frustrated as he is driven to cooperate with others just as much as he does not want to be in the presence of anyone else and wishes to lounge on his own. Perhaps this is more annoying than my double territorialism, but perhaps not, depending on who I just snapped at to get away from what I perceive to be mine. Both are worth documenting, noting, celebrating even. Proof of you being alive, of these being real, tangible parts of you. No matter who or what you are, every part of you affects every other part, even if it isn't obvious or drastic. What affects to one part of your body affects the other parts, and the same is true of your mind and your very being. It's all interconnected, and it all makes you, and you are worth celebrating. And in the wake of identities affecting each other, is it any surprise that they can create each other too? A lion therian might have a deep, unwavering connection to zebras, but not necessarily be one. The connection the connection to the zebra comes from the lion stereotype because of how important zebras are to the life of a lion, possibly even to this specific lion. This could be a heart type, but a word I like is paratype, specifically because it's vague, open, and leaves a lot of room for interpretation of these kinds of connections or identities, depending on how you want to define them. Paratype or heart type can be just as meaningful to someone as a stereotype, link type, or kin type, and we should embrace that and embrace hearing about it. I'd love to hear more in this vein, because I think there's little more interesting than hearing about how someone can have something be so important to them, but only because of something else about them that might seem unrelated on first glance, but makes perfect sense when you hear the explanation. Hell, this happens all the time with animal types and other similar animals. How many cats of various descriptions have a connection to other kinds of cats? I think this is all the more likely to happen if whatever identity is being formed by something it's being formed by something archetypical in some way. If you're a villain, you might find yourself fascinated by knights or paladins. If you're a knight, you might have a deep connection to squires or horses or dragons. I think that mythological and folkloric creatures and identities are archetypes in a way, too. They crop up again and again in folklore and myths and stories, often playing a lot of the same roles. Ain't that the definition of an archetype? Ain't it easier to trip ass over tea kettle into being connected to a dragon, a wolf, or a fairy than a carpenter ant or an airite snail? Shout out to all the ants and snails listening. I became an angel because I was given immortality and the ability to protect and heal. I was turned into a salubri, a healing vampire. And so I turned to an angelic mindset because they seemed so intertwined for me right off the bat that I felt like this is what I was always meant to be. Isn't that just falling into an archetype? Letting it become you? Don't any of you out there experience this? I'm sure someone does. I know that Veet's panel and architropy last OtherCon blasted my brain right off its hinges. I realized this about myself, despite it being true for decades in source and for the year I'd been in the system. And these identities can reinforce each other over and over until it's unclear which came first. Did I really become an angel because I was turned into a salubri, or did my sire turn me into a salubri because she already saw the makings of an angel in me? I was already strong and protective. Did you think she just needed to give me a nudge to get me the rest of the way there? Is a lion drawn to zebras because they're a lion? Or are they a lion because they're drawn to hunt and interact with the zebras the same way a lion does? Does it matter either way? You are who and what you are, no matter what that is, even if it's temporary. And it's my belief that you should hold that tightly and dearly, because there's nothing more you than yourself, and that's worthwhile. Neurodivergence in Alterhumanity. This topic may be the most controversial of the lot, and as a result, I think that it is one of the most important to discuss. Alterhumanity can be influenced, affected, or even caused by neurodivergence. What this looks like can vary extremely, extremely widely, and I can only cover so much, so feel free to talk about your own experiences in the chat during or after the panel. I believe that the way these things can be related, that is the easiest to understand, is overlap. Similar to the overlap of alterhuman identities, there can be overlap between an alterhuman identity and the symptoms or effects of a neurodivergence. For example, many behaviors or desires can be tied back to an individual's alterhumanity, their autism, or both. There's a lot of overlap in growling, hissing, or making other noises, walking on your toes, or as close as digitigrade as the human body can, sitting in odd positions or places, struggling to socialize or fit in with normal human society, and other behaviors or feelings. Not all alterhumans are autistic, nor are all autistic people alterhuman, but there are many autistic individuals and systems within the alterhuman community, and many agree that the two can, on occasion, intersect. Some even saying that, if they're going to be dehumanized for their autism, they might as well not be human, and instead be something altogether different that they find more comfortable. We ourselves are autistic and find the two intersecting constantly. Maybe Tannic drives us to walk on our toes because he is autistic, or perhaps because he is a dragon, or both. But we are prone to doing it no matter who fronts. But many of the dragons in the system, Tannics especially, drastically increase the frequency with which we do it. For Tannics, his autism and his draconity are completely interwoven. There is no one without the other. He does not personally believe that his draconity stems from his autism, but who's to say it couldn't, in theory? Some autistic alterhuman out there almost certainly feels as though their alterhumanity stems in some way, if not completely, from from their autism. That is, after all, how I feel about my draconity and my borderline personality disorder. It seems like a stretch, doesn't it? A personality disorder causing a species identity. But hear me out. I believe that anything can cause an alterhuman identity, of nearly any type. I, again, do not see why we need to remain bound to firm binaries and the idea of correct origins of identities. I have a dragon archetrope, as in, I am a dragon in an archetypical sense, less a literal one. I do not experience draconic urges or instincts most of the time, although they do happen. But I get phantom limbs and sensations, and I simply feel as though looking like a dragon is as right to me as looking like my usual human adjacent self. Vampires mostly look the same as we did prior to our embrace, although the fangs are new. Why do I not consider myself dragonkin? Because I do not feel like a real dragon, precisely, although I am one. I am the idea of a dragon, the role of one. I'm an archetype, and that archetype is dragon, and that is part of my identity. But not in the same way that Tanix, who I would consider to be a quote unquote run of the mill spiritual dragonkin. He's fine with me calling him that. He says it's true from where he's sitting at the moment. My draconity is wholly different and means something different to me than it does to Tanix, or the other dragons in our system. And that is because of how it was created. Most of the dragons here are dragons because they were fictives and were dragons in source. And the others are typically dragonkin, should have been dragons that ended up in human bodies for one reason or another. I am not that way. I have not always been a dragon, and indeed believe I was shaped into one. For those unfamiliar, borderline personality disorder, or BPD, is a cluster B personality disorder that has a wide variety of symptoms, but one of which is having a malleable or unstable identity. Part of who I am desperately wishes to change to match the desires and expectations of those around me that I care about. And while I'm much better about that nowadays than I was back before I knew I had a personality disorder, some part of me is still malleable. My husband, the love of my life for over 1,000 years, even if we had a messy, centuries-long divorce in the middle, is a dragon. Not exactly. Not bodily, completely in source, but he is, I would say, dragonkin. And that means he is a dragon, no questions. His soul is that of a dragon, and with me being so close to him for so long and so admiring, of course I changed to match him. I have described this as my being soft clay and being pressed up against his scales. When he pulled away, it left a negative of his scales in me. Of course I am a dragon. reflecting one, filling the role of one. Both he and the host of my system, Tanix, to whom I am co-host and partner in all things, are dragons. My main partners in crime are dragons, and I love them dearly. With my malleable and uncertain personality, of course I began to reflect them. It began with Tremere, but ended with Tanix, the final nail in the coffin of Draconity, living in his head and alongside him at all times for all things. Did Tremere and Tanix make me a dragon? Did my personality disorder turn me into a dragon? I think that I became one because of a mixture of both. Call that a psychological origin if you want, but I would protest to it being boiled down so simply into a label that can mean so much but define so little. Similarly, I would also protest the idea that I am the only one like this. Surely someone has an experience similar, an identity crafted, or drawn from a psychological quirk, a disorder, a neurodivergence like this. I refuse to believe that I am alone, just as I refuse to believe that I am just normal otherkin. I'm attributing this to the wrong source. I know why I am this way. I know it better than I know some other parts of myself. And I tell you this so that you can peer into yourself too and ask, is this how I am? Do I have anything like this? I encourage you not to dismiss it if you have an inkling. Identity can spring from anywhere, and no matter where, it is just as valuable to you. Alterhuman and non-human identity can even stem from or otherwise be related to delusions. There's a term for this. Endel, or as a modifier, endelic, as in endelic otherkin or endelic therian. This is a self-identifier only, as in it should not be used to imply that someone is delusional, not that you should be doing so anyway. There's a long history in the Alterhuman, mostly otherkin, but other Alterhuman as well, community of being called delusional for our identities, then raising a defensive, no, we're not delusional, here's the definition of this identity versus the definition of delusions, they're different, essentially throwing delusional Alterhumans under the bus. Identities based in delusions are not inherently bad or harmful, and frankly, it is best to let those with the identities come to a conclusion about whether or not something is helpful, harmful, or simply there. Just like with every other aspect of their lives. Just like other alterhuman identities, endelic identities are often enriching to the lives of those who hold them. And the fact that these individuals are delusional does not make the identity less real or less important. I absolutely cannot stress this enough. No matter what identity someone holds, no matter the reason, they know themselves better than you do. Even if you do not believe them, at the very least, be polite and be quiet. Still, though, I urge you to try to believe people. After all, you may learn something. There are 1,000 ways you might derive or relate an alterhuman identity to a mental illness. Autism, a personality disorder, or delusions, yes, but also OCD, ADHD, or anything else. Once again, I'm here to remind you, the limits aren't real. And not only can you do whatever you want forever, but you can be whatever you want forever. If you feel you are something for a particular reason, but have never given it much thought, maybe you should. Alright. Blurring and sharing. Identities in the system. There's an aspect of identity that Goratrix briefly touched on while discussing Tanix, Tremere, and himself in regards to his dragon archetype. Headmates having an effect on each other's identities. I'm going to put that back in the forefront and talk about that some, because it's fascinating and something that I think gets overlooked while talking about systems and collective identity. First, let's talk about identities held by an individual that are affected by other members of the system. I think that Goratrix's example above is a good one. He was affected back in source by Tremere's Draconity, but his own didn't really settle in until he shared a head and frontal time with Tanix and Tremere, two dragons, who very clearly helped define his Draconity. But there are other things, too, other ways this can manifest. For example, sharing phantom limbs. That's an easy one, right? Let's say Japheth, who has no phantom limbs on his own, is fronted. And then Tanix rolls up into the front alongside him to hang out. Tanix has a whole lot of phantom limbs. and sometimes those are going to show up on the bounty whether or not he's primary fronting. Japheth is still mostly in control, but now he has Tannix's limbs under his control too. Is that an identity? I don't know. I don't think so inherently, but is it important? Is it worth talking about? Not to Japheth. He finds it kind of annoying and hates primary fronting because of it. But could it to someone else? Absolutely. Tannix loves feeling Valence's tail instead of his sometimes, since it's much more expressive and flexible, and they mesh really well because of it. Maybe that's something to celebrate, even if it's not an aspect of identity per se. We don't experience any kind of identity feeling from feeling each other's limbs usually, but, well, I guess I better talk about myself again. I'm an angel. I've had phantom feathered wings for a long time, although I don't know if I had them before I became a vampire. But I do know I've had them for longer than I've been in the DWW. That was all I had, though, at least at first. For a long time now, I've been co-fronting with all these damn dragons off and on. We got nearly a dozen dragons, you can believe that. And that's had an effect on my body map, or at least how I perceive it. We're so used to people having wings, digitigrade legs, and a tail that I automatically adjust to be that way, particularly around dragons, and it's weird. But my tail ain't a dragon tail. It's feathered and or furred, kind of hard to tell, and my feet are like a cat's paws more than a dragon's toes and talons. My wings are mine still, white and sometimes red and feathered, but what gives? What's going on? The best I can figure with what's going on is with my internal body map, especially with the movable ears or the muzzle I sometimes get, is that I'm combining how feather and mammalian I am, and I'm firmly both, with general humanoid bodied dragon body shape and getting some kind of weird Gryphon out of it. And the weird part is, I like it. It feels like the most correct version of myself, to the point where I tend to feel like that even if I'm in the front without any dragons around. It's less strong, sure, but it's there and I like it. I like being some kind of bipedal humanoid Gryphon thing. Now, does that make me a Gryphon or anything else? I don't know. I don't think so. Not necessarily. I don't really have any special connection with Gryphons. I don't feel like one outside of my body map and phantom limbs, and I've never identified as one before. So then am I wrong to say that I am sort of one? Where's the line? I feel like there's a lot to think about there, and if you have anything similar going on, the answer might be different for you than it is for me. Everyone's going to be different. Everyone's approach to this is going to be different, and that's okay. Personally, if someone said that this made them a Gryphon, I'd just take it at face value. I don't know if it fits for me. I don't know if it feels right. But I suppose I'm trying to argue for the right to say it if I want to. Is there a word for this? I don't know. There isn't, maybe there should be. I don't feel like I am a Gryphon so much as I look like one, but that's essential to my identity too, you know? How you look is important, one way or another, to how you see yourself, and thus is an important part of who I am. It sure wasn't voluntary, but I wouldn't go back, even though I'm sure I could if I really, really tried, fought and clawed and howled to get away from it, but I don't want to. Not even a little bit. If you've got something like this, I encourage you to play with it. Poke at it. Learn a little about yourself. Embrace it and feel it if it's enjoyable. Let yourself sink into it if you want. I think it's worth exploring, documenting, and living. Now, similarly, let's talk about identities held by multiple members of a system. This could be anything. A handful of headmates having a wolf kintype when they're together but no other time. A system that collectively identifies as a Grim Reaper but individually are all separated from that. A system with dragons in it that together form a Hydrolink type. Hell, in our system, Anodox and Varian together feel like they have some kind of hero archetype, but alone they only got pieces of it. I feel like these identities get talked about some, especially static collective identities, but ones shared between only certain headmates or ones that only exist off and on tend to get left a little more by the wayside. Maybe they're not common, I don't know. But I've heard enough about them in the past during brief conversations in Discord servers and on my dashboard that I think they're more common than people believe. I think the temporary identities aren't acknowledged or celebrated enough, as they could be, if I'm honest. So what if Zakareth and I blur so badly that me as an angel and he as an Anchiornis make us some kind of humanoid bird? And it happens once but never again. Is that really nothing? Should we just move on like that never happened? Like we weren't truly together or a bird for an hour or two? People love the idea of fusion in shows and fanfic. Why can't we celebrate these brief moments of blurring so hard we practically become one new person until we unblur and become ourselves again? Sure, it's not something you can write in your bio, but it's worth thinking about, I guess, and maybe worth writing an essay about. Fiction flickers can absolutely be essential to someone's alterhumanity, also not acknowledged enough. So why not flicker on identities and systems? Some may come back, the Hydra reforms, the pieces of the wolf front together, but others may not. Zakareth and I haven't been that blurry again since the one time, and either way, I think that's okay. I think that temporary identities are worth enjoying, whether or not they're repeatable, and I think that collective identity, temporary or permanent, is something worth playing with. After all, don't most systems come up with some kind of name to call themselves? Don't they figure out collective pronouns? Don't many either come up with or settle on a single identity to use for the outside world if they're not out as a system? Collective identity is well and truly an established concept, so I think that could be played with more in terms of alterhuman identity. If you experience anything like this, I encourage you. Write about it. I want to hear it, and I know other people do too. It don't have to be a nice, big, polished essay. Just scribble something down, get your thoughts out. Tell people what you felt or are feeling. That's all you have to do to have contributed something to the community and to help normalize some aspects of identity, some kinds of it that some people may never considered before. So, in conclusion, why talk about all this? Why'd we get into it? Well, partially to share some experiences we'd seen and felt, get it out there that it's possible, but also to inspire people. We want to see more community writings. Long essays, short essays, blog posts, journals, pieces of artwork, submissions to zines, anything you want to create. We want you to explore your identity with greater horizons in mind and interact with others with that same mindset. We want you to be able to look at your identity, wherever it derives from, and enjoy it, poke at it, prod it, and understand it. Whether it be permanent or temporary, only your own or shared with another, it is still a part of you, and that is worth celebrating. Don't you enjoy spring flowers, even if they only last a little while? Isn't the mushroom that emerges after a rain but is gone a day or two worth admiring? Even a temporary identity, flicker, something shared with a headmate when only you two are fronting anything, is worth exploring and acknowledging, even if it leaves and never returns. Hell, with identity, get silly with it. I mean, by all means, keep taking yourself seriously. Don't just pick up saying you're kin with something just because you like it. I'm not trying to say to kin for fun or nothing, but enjoy yourself. If you're a dog, even for an afternoon, why not have some fun with it? Enjoy it. Enjoy yourself. Maybe you'll find new ways to enjoy being alive and enjoy being yourself. I know it's hard sometimes, but this might just be a step to making it a little bit easier. You are what you are, no matter what that is or why. You can be something, any number of somethings for any reason, and you can be wrong too, and that's all right. There is no harm in exploring something only to find out that it isn't what you thought, or that it was temporary. Spend time with yourself and every aspect of your identity if you can, and acknowledge where things intersect, overlap, and interact. You might just be surprised. All right, that is the end of our talk. If you're on the script, if you scroll down a little bit, you can find where to find us. If you scroll down a little further, you can see our sources and further reading. I hope that was meaningful to all of you. I hope that was anything. Please God, tell me that was anything. Thank you. Thank you. We'll have to backlog the chat because we don't know what y'all were saying. But we still got some time. We didn't take as long talking as we thought we might. That's great. We are gonna go ahead and move into the Q&A. Please feel free to drop any questions you got into panel questions, but couple caveats. Remember, this is being recorded. This is going on YouTube. Don't put anything too personal. I swear to God. If you got a really deeply personal question and you really want us to answer it, please feel free to message us privately. You have many avenues to do so. Please feel free. Also, if you can keep your questions on the short side, please don't send us 2 to 3 paragraphs, possibly with a question in the middle. Goratrix has had a few incidents where people sent like 2 paragraphs of context and didn't even include a question. Please, please, give me something. Yes, Paige, give us your whole social security number in your question. I'd love your social security number. Is there a difference between archetypes and archetypes? I've never seen the latter word before. There was a panel on archetypy yesterday. In our script, we also linked to the recording at OtherCon. That is a much better description of archetypes than I could give in a minute or two. I would highly recommend taking a look at that. How do we end up making panels that you need? You know what, Dasky? It's because we follow you around and we just pick up what you're thinking and we make a panel on it. That's why Goratrix ain't sure what to do for OtherCon. You need another headmate that has a problem. Come on, chop chop. We're on a deadline here. Any other questions? We're going to put them in the panel questions chat. If you put them in regular chat, it scrolls by so fast. I don't know if you're asking me. I don't know if you're asking someone else. I'm glad you're all doxing yourselves in chat. All of your identities are mine. I will be buying myself very many nice things with your bank details. Thank you for the nice comments in the chat. Thank you. We were so hoping that this would be helpful to people, not just us talking out our asses. Chimeras. How do you come up with such epic panel topics? Luck. Goratrix's power. I think about what kinds of things I would have liked to hear, particularly when I was newer. I sit down, I think about the things that I care about and the things I wish someone had said to me and the things I wish someone would say to other people, and I don't know how to say it in any other medium. I'm not very good at one-on-one back and forths myself, so it seems I just want to give a speech 1 to 2 times a year and hope that helps people. Any tips on how to not toss your whole identity every time you get a new shift? Well, here's the thing. You can have a handful of identities, and you can also just kind of accept that a shift is a shift, you know? It don't have to mean anything, or it can, or the thing it means is that you get them. I guess it's you just incorporate everything, you know, everything that feels like it's essential to you, and the rest you just kind of watch go by and try to accept. It's tricky, but you figure it out. I know there are quite a few people that have cameo shifts as an essential part of their identity, for example, where they just accept that they're just going to get shifts of things that they are not and embrace that. I'm glad you guys are all sharing your kin types in the chat. That's very kind. Ronnie asks, do you have any thoughts/advice on how to differentiate between phantom shift caused by the interaction of two headmates, a la what Raphael described, and phantom shift because of one headmate who didn't realize they had that identity until they wound up in system? My best advice for that would be to keep track of when that happens, because if you get it when only those two people are present, that's a bit more of a sign. However, some systems don't have that option per se, where someone is front stuck and it is potentially an interaction with the person in the front. At which point, my best suggestion would be for the person who might have that identity to do a little journaling, exploration, dig into it, see if it's anything that has to do with them or if it's only when interacting with the other. Unfortunately, my advice is to do the exact thing that you do when you're questioning a kin type. Y'all got any shapeshifter polymorph that has interposed and phantom limbs on other system members while having a superimposing phantom limbs for their different forms? Not us, sorry. That sounds like that can be a lot, though. What is your advice for when the community influences your identity? Um, can I ask a clarification of what you mean by that? Everyone in chat is eating social security numbers. We're really ramping it up this year. Stop pickling things! Stop pickling things! Oh, like when you see someone identifying as a wolf and you want to identify as a wolf as well to fit in. I think, well, I think my best advice is to try to work on. You're not gonna like this one. My advice would be to work on your own self confidence, I guess, because if you are feeling the need to identify as something or change who you are to fit in, that is a reflection of not being sure of yourself or being a little freaked out in the community. And there's nothing wrong with that. I want to clarify that. There is nothing wrong with that. But that is something I think you need to put a little work into. And I would recommend spending some time again, write something, journal something. And maybe that's worth writing about too, get your thoughts down. Because that's an experience you're having and maybe it's good, maybe it isn't, maybe it's a problem. I don't know, but I think writing about it might help you sort out a thing or two. Fair enough. Goratrix, from one BPD individual to another, do you have recommendations to sort between feelings of just having a malleable personality to ones you've decided are truly an aspect of you, X you having a dragon archetype? Well, I try to keep track of it based on time. Unfortunately, that's usually the answer with malleable personality with BPD is things will come and go, but if something stays for a long time, it's probably going to stay for a while. like many things in this community, time is typically going to be the answer. But also sometimes something can very firmly take you over, I suppose. And I don't feel like there's anything wrong with riding that wave or taking it in, experiencing it, accepting it, even if it's temporary due to the nature of a malleable personality. So telling the difference between the two is important, but maybe not as much as you're thinking. Of course. In response to people, mostly Poppy in chat, and I think Paige? Yes. Write, please. God, write. Write everything. And as Raphael said earlier in the panel, you don't need to write a big, beautiful essay. Journal, write something small, do a piece of art, do a poem, anything that comes to mind. It's all essential to you understanding yourself, others understanding you, others understanding themselves. I do these panels half for myself to get at my own thoughts on the topic, but you'll notice how many people in chat say that these help them. And my advice for writing is don't think about it. Don't worry about it. You will overthink it. Just sit down, black out, and write whatever comes to mind. You don't have to share it. You can edit it. It's fine. But just get the words down, get the thoughts out. Sometimes you'll find that something you can't quite comprehend makes a lot more sense on paper. Stream of consciousness piece. Yes, yes, Solomon, go, go. Yes. Just write. Just put down anything that comes into your damn head. You can make it pretty later. You can make it pretty never. We publish our first draft of just about everything. We write it up, we sit back, we edit it to make sure we didn't say anything dumb, and off we go. Anyone who's following along with the script may notice we had a few typos, one word to another word. No, you didn't. You didn't see it. Our panel was perfect, didn't trip over everything, it was great. You cannot edit a blank page, absolutely. And here's a little secret. If you are not reading other people's essays and thinking very mean, critical things about them, which I'm sure you're probably not, why would other people do the same thing to you? People are reading your work and just being interested in the thing that you're saying. And if anyone is mean, because I will not lie, there are mean people out there, I highly recommend just blocking them. Do not engage, do not fight, block them. And blocking someone is not letting them win, it is you establishing boundaries, and that is healthy. And Dove will eat them. I love blocking people. I block people I think are annoying. I block people I think are mean. I don't care. You should block people if you don't like them. And then once you blocked all the mean people, you're only going to have people saying nice things about your work, and if people are saying mean things about your work, it wasn't for them. And absolutely, Poppy's saying you're your own worst critic. No one's as critical as your writing as you. True. Accurate. Literally yesterday, we were like looking over our panel between the other panels, like, God, is this terrible? Is this shitty? Like, we had to share the script with a couple people to read it over just to make sure this wasn't nothing. Like, guaranteed, everyone's worried about the quality of their work. Everybody. So just breathe and push on. I love the writing and blocking energy in chat. I love it. It's really good. And we're talking about NeoCities. Absolutely recommend making a personal website to put all your writing on. I mean, like, post it wherever, but also cross-post it to your website and send it to the archivists. They want it. They want it. Look at Paige. Look at him. He's starving. He's starving to death. You got to send him writing or he'll die. Paige, I need you to flap around on the ground a little bit. Do some death throws. You got to feed him. You're starving him. Thank you, archivists, rather on the floor. And also, I promise blocking people's not mean. It's boundary establishment. I would not be surprised if I have someone in the Centaurus Festival, or more likely, in one of the other con servers blocked on Tumblr because you put something in the tags that I didn't like. I don't know. It's very possible. Blocking isn't personal. It's just, this is not for me. Paige, I will be sending you anything I write via messenger pigeon. And Nova, you will get smoke signals. Chaya! Yes, you can keep the pigeon. I mean, y'all got any other questions? Anything else? I hope this has been meaningful to you. I hope it's made a few of you think. My goal with this panel was to, like, blast someone's concept of identity off its hinges. At least one. Did I get anybody? Good, good. Yes, yes. Have an unhinged concept of identity. Fuck hinges. We don't like them. Identity anarchy. I love the energy. I love the energy. Everyone always brings such good, unhinged energy to the chat and panels. I do like it. No rules, just right. Your identity's your own. I want to see more writing. I want to see more weird writing. I want someone here to revolutionize how we write about our identities. I want someone to do something weird. Do some kind of weird format. Do like cut letters out of magazines and, like, make a ransom note, except it's like an essay about your experiences and that has to do with your experiences or something. Do like a complicated ARG to, like, come out as Dragonkin, like, do something fun with it. I love the weird ideas happening. Do it. Yes. Where should you write your experiences? Anywhere. On a blog, on your website. I, if you've got an Alterhuman social media, do that. I know we use Tumblr for the most part, and then we will cross-post to our website, and if it's someone with a fiction-based identity, we will also cross-post to the fiction con dream with. Which, if you have any kind of fiction-based identity, I would highly recommend checking out. Goratrix runs it. It's nice, it's slow, no one's gonna be mean there. He's the admin, he'll bite people if they're mean. The end. Paige is completely right. Please write about your experiences on a napkin. I want to see your napkin. Hell, just make a dream with and write in your journal on dream with. Write in a Google Doc. Do something. Oh, another tip. I know we're like hitting the end of our panel. If people need to leave, feel free. Don't care. It's fine. Do what you need to do. But I'm gonna keep talking for a while. Um, write about the mundane shit too. Um, like a few weeks ago, like a month ago or something. One of us like was talking about how subsystems in our system work, and I think it was Nova said something like, "Oh, I'd love to see an essay about that," and we like stopped dead, like, "But that's not interesting. That's mundane." And then Toriel sit down and wrote it, and realized it was actually extremely complicated and really interesting. So write about the weird shit, the mundane shit, the stuff that's just kind of daily to you, but is really unique to you. People will find it more interesting than you think. I know I don't know. I get a little frustrated because I tend to know a lot more of the weird, esoteric, out there stuff about my alterhuman friends than like the day to day. What's your basic structure? What's that look like? How you put together? How's it work? How do you make things work? Especially with systems, like what's going on? Write about the mundane. Write about the basic. I want to hear it. We want that in the archive. You joke about today I did my taxes dragonly. I want to hear it. Feed the archivists. Grocery stores cause alterhumanity. I want to hear about it. Write about what the grocery store does to your alterhumanity. Tell me now. Yes, yes. The basic mundane stuff is important for questioning folks. Absolutely. When we didn't know what to call our system, it took us so long to understand the difference between monoconscious and polyconscious because no one writes about the basic experiences, and those are pretty basic, fundamental things about being a system. It took us a very long time to figure out that we're monoconscious. Please write about the normal stuff. And I'm a hypocrite. Oh, we're a hypocrite. We don't write about that shit enough because we don't think it's interesting. But it is. It's all interesting. Please write about it. Write about everything. I want to know. I'm creeping up behind you. I've got my binoculars. Tell me about it. I'm gonna get you. Soul system raising great points in chat. Poppy raising great points. If you don't define it, then no one's ever gonna know, and then the archive's gonna be incomplete and everyone's gonna be sad. I would love to be bait and switch with another Ken essay that turns into talking about cool plants. Excellent points in chat. Good reasons to write down everything. Now, again, when I say write down everything, I do mean like about your alterhumanity. Please do not write down the address of where you went for this to happen. Still practice your internet safety. And don't share anything that you're uncomfortable with sharing or that's a little too like identifiable in the real world. Please do not get doxxed. I do not want you to get doxxed. A big struggle with writing the mundane is it's hard to know where normal starts and stops. Well, that's kind of the point of writing it, I guess, to some extent. Is it doesn't really matter. You just kind of write on a topic until you've written everything you feel like writing on a topic. It's okay if some's normal and some isn't. That's part of what Alterhumanity is all about, is some weird stuff becoming normal, because when you first discover it, like, oh, everything's different, I'm a dragon now, and then it's like, like with Tanix, it's like, 6, 7 years down the line, he's like, yeah, whatever. I do agree. There are not enough spaces to talk about kind of like adult NSFW topics, with these kinds of experiences. Again, I'd recommend putting it on your own blog, in your own spaces, on like social media if it's allowed, and just kind of tag it appropriately, or like link to it if you can't post it there. I promise you, there are a lot of adults interested in the thing that you're saying. It's just that it's hard to put a community for that together, because sometimes shit gets a little weird. There are not as many minors as you'd think, I think. I think it's just that the minors tend to be a little louder, a little more vocal. The adults tend to lurk because we're busy. A lot of us got jobs. Um, but also the fact of the matter is, if you write something and the minors can't read it, they'll be able to read it later. You know, like if someone's 16, they can't read it now, but they might have some good thoughts on it in a couple years. Once you write it, it's out there, and people can respond to it whenever they'd like. I also, by the way, everyone, while you're listening, encourage you to go find a piece of writing that is more than a year or two old, something that resonates with you, and respond to it. Write something, email the author, do something. Because sometimes old pieces don't get enough love because they're posted at a weird time or something, but there's a lot of valuable stuff. Go dig through the Alterhuman archive. Someone link it again. Go dig through it, go find a topic you're interested in, go find some interesting stuff, and if it's meaningful to you, contact the person who wrote it. Say something nice, you know? Or make a post somewhere saying, like, oh, I read this, and link it, and then just start talking about it. There's nothing wrong with just starting a conversation somewhere about something you read. We love you, Alterhuman Archive. I only saw it for the first time yesterday, and I'm already in love with it. No, I didn't know about it. Yes, I'm friends with some of the people who run it. We exist. You never talk about it. You never talk about it in my vicinity. Never once have you mentioned it. I don't think so. Maybe? We only started talking in the past few months. How long has this archive existed? We're solving a mystery now. Didn't you archive when you created it? Unbelievable. And yeah, no, there are a lot of adults. Like, most alter humans we have encountered are adults. There's, again, a lot of like unknown ones in the there's a lot of unknown ones, a lot of lurkers. Paige, that date that you said, that is approximately when we had a medical procedure that, after something bad had happened, um and I formed the following month. And we only got our mental processes back a few months later, and that was when we really started getting involved in the community. So we missed all of the announcements and talk about it. Yes. I am from August 2021. Yes, everyone, I'm almost 3. Ooh, I'm a minor. A minor? I'm 3 years old. Don't you minor code me. You're all bullying me. I want everyone to know he's 5'6". He's a really tall child. Yeah, whenever we encounter pounds, like, "How old are you?" We're like, "I guess we will say our body age because that is a complicated question." Yes, absolutely. Lots and lots of people that are 30 plus. I know a lot of Alterhumans that are 30 or older. A lot of them. Tons of them. They're just quieter. They got day jobs. Some of them are married. Some of them got kids. They're busy. Why are you sending me to the mines? Yeah, a lot of people over 30. Lots and lots of people in their 20s. Again, there are minors in this community, and that's fine. I love you minors in this community. Um, but it is not the end all be all of Alterhumanity. It is not most of them. I know a lot of people seem to feel that way, but it's not true. And while we're here, it is not wrong to have a conversation with a minor as long as you're being like normal about it. I promise. I know that's kind of been a mindset setting in on the internet lately, but it's not weird to have a conversation with another human being or another creature or another animal or a beast or some kind of cloud entity. Because if someone's like, "Oh, you can only talk to me if you're under 18," they're gonna talk to other people under 18, they're gonna get in an echo chamber, and they're not gonna know how to interact with adults, including the, bad ones, they're gonna lie. So, please talk to people different ages from you, and please be normal, thank you. Must be at least 5'2" to talk to me. That's how I feel, I'm like 6'3", and I'm like, "Oh, shit." If I'm over a foot taller than someone's like, "Alright, goodbye." Yeah, the call blogs are gonna be a little more. It's because 'cause they're usually run by the kind of people that think that it's immoral for an adult and a minor to speak, so it's tricky. Also, we didn't talk about it, but I'm sure your age can have something to do with your older human identity as well, I just didn't know what to say about it. So if you being 30 or whatever affects how you see your species identity, I'd love to hear about it. Oh, I'm very excited to be called a toddler for the next few years. I'm married. Chaya! I love to teach my daughter how to interact with adults when she's a minor, so you can't talk to her. Good luck, pumpkin, you're on your own. Well, Paige, the next panel of mine you attend will probably be at OtherCon, at which point I'll be 4. So get with it. Don't worry, Paige, my marriage is alright. He's a few months younger than me. Chaya, aren't you about 3? Alright, sounds good. Goodbye, everybody. Hope you like the panel.